The Wherryman's Way is a 35-mile long-distance trail right across the Norfolk Broads National Park. The route's official trailhead is at the railway station and follows the River Wensum briefly to the nearby village of Trouse. The route passes Whitlingham Country Park and crosses open countryside to Bramerton Staithe, where the River Yare is followed to Surlingham. A brief detour off the route leads to the ruins of St Saviour's Church before rejoining the riverbank path around RSPB Surlingham Church Marsh National Nature Reserve. Coldham Hall is bypassed to join a track past the Ted Ellis Nature Reserve and into the village of Rockland St Mary and the end of the first day along the trail. The busy, historic streets of Norwich mark the start of the 35-mile long-distance trail called the Wherryman's Way. The way links Norwich to the coastal town of Great Yarmouth by following the River Yare as close as possible. The route gets its name from the wherry, a large cargo-carrying barge that once was common all over the Norfolk Broads. Most public transport links stop at the city centre by the spectacular 11th century Norman castle, surrounded by ample shops to top up on supplies and walking gear before heading down the hill to the official trailhead at the train station. The path crosses the River Wensum to arrive at the spectacular Grade 2 listed railway station, dating to 1886. From here the Wensum is rejoined and followed past the Riverside entertainment area. It's worth noting that the new Riverside apartments across the water were built on the site of St Michael's Church and Priory, one of many priories around Norwich. The Wherryman's Way leaves the River Wensum at Carrow Road football ground, but it's worth taking a little detour to two of the city wall towers. Collectively, these two are known as the Boom Towers. The nearest is known as the Devil's Tower and appears to have deliberately been built separate from the city wall, with its sole purpose to carry the iron staple for the chain which spanned the river. The towers are listed as a scheduled ancient monument and date to the 14th century. The Wherryman's Way continues out of the city, past the Coleman's Mustard Factory, which was built on the site of a Benedictine priory founded in the 12th century, and heads over the main Norwich to London train line. It's here that the route is first introduced to the River Yare, which is the main river followed to the coast. Sitting alongside the river is St Andrew's Church, a Grade 1 listed building dating back to the 13th century, and with numerous alterations through the years. Following Whitlingham Lane, the route eventually turns left and enters Whitlingham Country Park. This fantastic recreational area is home to several lakes, nature trails, and some rare species of wildlife. Right alongside the path you may notice the enigmatic ruins of Trouse Newton Hall. This was once the country house for the priors of Norwich, later the deans after the dissolution, and then later again converted into a farmhouse. The building was originally built in the mid-15th century and largely demolished in 1860. As you begin to leave Whitlingham Country Park, there are some unusual mounds and earthworks in the woodlands alongside. These old gravel pits have provided evidence of ancient extinct mammals, as well as humans living in the area over 12,000 years ago. Just before heading under the A47 dual carriageway, up to the right you may notice more enigmatic ruins on the hilltop. These are the remains of St Andrew's Church dating back to the 14th century and fell into disrepair sometime around 1630. The western end of the church once had a tower which sadly collapsed in 1940. Just beyond the A47, the Wherryman's Way passes probably one of the least pleasant sections on the entire route. The massive sewage works is a real eyesore, and it's worth speeding past and breathing just with your mouth until you reach the other side of the site. But as you do, the path begins a gentle ascent to the highest point on the entire walk at 21 metres above sea level. Now, this might not sound like much, but when the landscape around you is much flatter, the view is really excellent. The Wood's End at Bramerton Staithe is the first sign of civilization since leaving Norwich several miles back, and offers visitors with refreshments and a warming, friendly atmosphere. Following the trail close to the River Yare, the path eventually arrives at Surlingham, a tiny village of only 725 inhabitants, spread out over several square miles. The round-towered church of St Mary is the first of several historic features in the village. Dating to the early 13th century, this church had undergone many alterations and repairs over the years, giving it a rather unique patchwork appearance. Just a few hundred metres off the trail, there are also the remains of St Saviour's Church, which sits on a slight hill overlooking the spectacular marshes to the north. The ruins are hard to date, but believed to originate from the 12th century, and once supported a tower. It is documented that the church has been out of use since 1705, although this has not stopped more recent burials in the churchyard, including that of the famous naturalist Ted Ellis. Sitting just to the north of the ruins is the spectacular RSPB Surlingham Church Marsh Nature Reserve. This 68-acre wetland reserve is home to some of Britain's rarest species, including hobby, kingfisher and the majestic marsh harrier. The trail skirts the entire northern edge of the reserve to arrive at a viewing platform which provides shelter, seating and a perfect place for a little rest, lunch and some wildlife watching. For those wanting to buy some hot food along the trail, just a few minutes walk further along, the path arrives at the ferry house, which marks a point where a ferry once crossed into Posek, on the other side of the river, and provides a wide range of food and drink for visitors. A short walk out and back to the River Yare visits Coldham Hall, another pub, this one dating to 1802, and provides more choice of food and drink for those walking the trail or just exploring the area. The final leg to the finishing point on the first day along the Wherryman's Way passes the Ted Ellis National Nature Reserve. This spectacular 128-acre wetland reserve is home to some rare species of birds and insects, and if time allows, a leisurely stroll along one of the numerous trails is highly recommended. As you continue south towards the village of Rockland St Mary, the route climbs a little to a height of about 10 metres over the surrounding marsh, and allows a view across the field to Rockland Broad, a 50-acre broad that is explored closer and in greater detail on the next stretch of the Wherryman's Way. As you enter the village of Rockland St Mary, there is a single bed and breakfast at Oxnead House, and a local pub called the New Inn, which overlooks the Staithe and marks the end of the day's walk.